All right, it is time. We're going to get started with this week's AMA. Welcome, everybody. As is our tradition, well, now we're including cameras in our tradition, but as is our tradition prior to that, we're going to start it off with going over to Frisky Fox.
My hair is kind of a mess, but it's okay. I have a DFK hat. Yeah, it's been another week, and yeah, this is kind of a really fun thing to have the cameras on now that we have the option. So yeah, it feels like it's just like yesterday that we did our last AMA, but it's been 7 days. It's just how it goes here in this space. But there's just been so much going on that like the days just fly by. Yesterday we had a release that included Duel Season 3. I was pretty heavily involved in that, and I was really pleased with the turnout that we saw. Like right at the start, there was a lot of people just hopping in. Last I looked, we had like, I don't know, 12,000 duels or something. That might be way off. But you know, it's just exciting, and I think part of the reason why, at least like the part that I'm the most excited about, is the addition of like having the leaderboard there, which sort of just adds another aspect to it for competition and like seeing yourself like climb those ranks. It's always fun. Unless you really suck like me, then you're kind of stuck at the bottom. But I'm gonna try to step up my game there. So that's there, and actually, it's really cool how that was built. We actually have that stored entirely on chain, and having that stay up to date with who is where was pretty complex to solve. We ended up using a red-black tree, also known as a uh, statistics tree, that sort of like automatically self-balances, and it's actually the same structure that's used for like matchmaking and things too. But there were a lot of improvements made there to just ensure that it's more like robust, and there was a few bugs that got worked out, which also directly impacts like matchmaking too. So that should hopefully be a little bit better too this season. We'll see how that actually plays out, and I'll be like monitoring it as we go. But that's the main thing, and then the other big thing, I guess, too, is just the ability to queue up to 10 times at once for having like a duel get fought. And so that really saves a ton of clicking, basically. In the old Duel, you had to go and click select heroes. You'd have to go find your team. You probably have to like alter some filters and things to find them, and then queue them up, and then select their stat and the thing for the background, and then the price point and all that stuff, and then hit it, and then have to wait, and then have to match make, and then have to fight. So there's a ton of clicks there. How it works now, you can just like select it once, and then say queue this up 10 times, and it will just like boom, 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 and then you hit match make, and it'll more often than not it'll match all of those 10 all at once too in the same call. So that's really cool. Sorry, I got my dog here and he's bringing snow in. Um, but that saves a ton of clicks, and I think that's going to result in a lot of uh, more like enjoyable play, and you'll see like a lot more players actually starting to get in on it, and I'm excited to see how it actually turns out. Shout out to Beetle Dude for all his work on that as well. He was really, really instrumental on that front. So, let's see what else happened. Guess there was Magnus. I think you had some updates you wanted to share about questing. Do you want to go ahead and do that while I check my notes?
Yep, sure thing. Yep, main update for this week is we've been making some good progress on Quest V3 in terms of getting it up to feature parity with Quest V2 as we convert to diamonds. So I've handed over fishing and foraging to the front end folks, so we can start getting some testing on that. However, we'll kind of be waiting to encapsulate like a lot of the new functionality in there. But the next thing I'll be working on with that is bringing over the rest of the quests in the system. So that's token mining and training quests and gold mining. What's really cool about this is from here on out, all the quest logic is going to be in one contract address, whereas before we had like probably like 20 or 30 different contracts that made up the entirety of the logic, and so it should simplify things kind of on the community builder side of things. It'll just be like an ID instead of having to like talk to multiple different contracts to get everything you need. And then I'm also working with the Clayton Foundation, some of the core protocol devs to see what we can do about increasing the computation limit. and so that they're going to do some analysis on that. And part of what they need from me is to basically set up like a parallel test environment and redeploy all our contracts and kind of just do some normal questing so they can evaluate that and see what they could do about increasing that limit. So good news there that's progressing this week. And then, but lastly, I'll also be traveling to Denver next week to speak on a panel about GameFi at the Interop Summit, which is hosted by Axelar. It's like another bridging protocol. So yeah, if you're at that conference, feel free to reach out. That's it for me this week.
Sweet. Yeah, I was able to find some notes about a few other things, but yeah, that's exciting about like the Quest core. Having that get upgraded to diamonds too is like a really big thing that Magnus has been working on. And actually, we're starting to push a lot of our contracts towards that now. Like we've been working on a auction house thing that I kind of mentioned last week, and we're at the point where like, okay, it's up and ready to go, but maybe we should just redo it as a diamond, so it'll be more future proof. And that's what I'm going to be working on a bit more this week too, on the side. But a few other things with duels that I forgot to mention. We did introduce the ability to pay with like lock tokens for duels, so that should be interesting. Also, how those are sort of like routed on the back end was improved, so that it's easier for like reporting and stuff. And then we had our first Gen Zero raffle end last night, and there was an issue with it. There ended up being, I think, 1,355 entry or individual players that were actually entering it with X amount of tickets each. And that actually kind of overloaded the system a little bit when it like went to draw it. It's like it was essentially like running out of gas, basically. Like it had the winning index already drawn, but it couldn't figure out who held that because it was running out of gas. So made a small tweak to that, ran it again, and it went through. And that's really impressive to have all that many people entering it. Honestly, that's awesome. And huge shout out to the winner. I can't remember what the name was, but I think he had like 2,000 raffle tickets that he put in. So just goes to show that you don't need to have like some huge like whale amount and still win. So let's see. Speaking of Gen Zero raffles, as you might have seen, we actually added those to the duel like raffler now, and it's not just for duel raffles. Actually, it's for all kingdom builders that are out there that are like utilizing that system, like Fight Club, for example. If you play their stuff, you can earn those tickets and then enter the raffle to win a Gen Zero, which I think is awesome. It's sort of saying, hey, the Gen Zeros that we've sort of like earmarked for duels, we're now opening it so it's more like anyone who is in that program can actually have like advantage of that basically there. So that'll be exciting. And actually, I think the end result is there's going to be more Gen Zeros given away than what we're doing or like what we did for Duel 2. But it's just because it's actually adding more because there's more input into the system. It's not just duels, but it's all of the kingdom building stuff basically. So stoked about that. And the only other thing, let's see. We had an audit that we did for some of our contracts, and we had some really good feedback. We made a lot of changes and submitted that back to them. So we're just kind of waiting for Hacken to respond and see how those stack up. And it's kind of just a iterative process where you kind of go back and forth and see, okay, here's some improvements you need to make. Okay, here's the changes. Okay, now there's these, here's this. And then at the end, it'll just be like super polished. So really stoked about that because, you know, here in this space, especially, like you want to make sure that you measure twice, cut once, sort of thing. And we're actually trying to get the auction house audited as well prior to launch. So that'll be great. And I think that's it for me. So Bolan, I'll hand the mic back over to you and we can go on.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Magnus, did that cover all your updates?
Yep, that was all for me.
All right, then let's go to Sunbear.
Hello everyone. This is not me. This is my bloater. His name is Bubba. He goes by Bubba. Just had to say hi with him. Hey everybody. Yeah, just a few updates today. A couple a couple of our partners were added into the Envoy. You might have noticed. Kingdom Studios, us. We partnered with ourselves apparently, but we thought it'd be good to have us in there since that's who we are and we're supporting this game right now. Hacken, which Fox mentioned, and they've been doing some smart contract audits for us, and so we wanted to put them in there as official partners. And we mentioned recently also Play One Games. They're helping us quite a bit with marketing and really zeroing in on players in South Korea and influencers there and helping get the word out for the game there. And one announcement that I want to put out there today that I'm really excited about, a partnership we've been working on for a while, and it's now official, is Hyperplay. And I'll drop a link here in a minute in the voiceless chat, but Hyperplay is a Web3 game launcher. You can carry your wallet, NFTs, tokens, achievements into any game that's linked through them. And it's actually backed by MetaMask, which is really huge. They're in collaboration with them. And their launch is coming up. They're going into a live beta at ETH Denver, so in the next week and a half. So we will be there. They're going to be doing demos. People will be playing DeFi Kingdoms through Hyperplay. It's going to break down a lot of barriers for some folks to be able to have access to our game or other Web3 games through this format. So really exciting. And we are the first web-based game in their platform. So exciting to partner with them and encourage you to check them out. And that is all for me on my side.
Thank you, Sunbear. Over to Hubert.
Hey, let's see. So I don't have too many updates at the moment. Just kind of continuing to progress on all the different things that I do, PvP tournaments, and also the pets and level 10 profession quests prep. One thing I did just want to mention is, we've been doing pretty good about having some class alpha every week, but this coming week it's looking like we're not going to be able to make it. Some things came up, and it's probably going to be a bit delayed. So just wanted to make sure you guys were aware. So on Monday, you don't sit there expecting something, because it's likely not to come. But we're hoping to be able to get back on the track with that. We kind of got a lot of different things happening right now. We are making some really good progress on the PvP system, and we also have ETH Denver and other events kind of coming up in the next couple weeks. So our priorities are just shifting a bit at the moment. But anyway, more to come. I guess I'll just let you know, just I guess a consolation prize of what the next one is we're planning for that to be Thief. So you guys can get excited for that and speculate, but there's a little bit of something for you for in the meantime. So
Thank you. All right. Real quick, actually, some updates from myself this week. So I wanted to mention a couple of things. First off, Fox referenced Fight Club earlier. A couple of exciting things for them. First off, they have a speed tournament tomorrow night. If you want to participate, as Fox mentioned, you get raffle tickets through Fight Club as well as Duels. You can enter all of those same raffles. Their dungeon prize pool is actually up to 800 crystal right now as well. But the main thing, and what I'm really excited about personally, is we have actually been working with Fight Club to get their bot integrated into our Discord server. So it's not done yet, but we're getting very close. So we wanted to go ahead and let people know that coming up shortly here, you will actually be able to play Fight Club in our server directly, which I'm really excited for. I think it'll be a lot of fun, give people some more interactions in our server. So very excited for that. Huge shout out to Fight Club because their game's a lot of fun and I like it. So that was, one other thing. We mentioned it last week, but and actually Magnus mentioned it earlier. Magnus will be in Denver next week speaking at an event. We also have myself, Sunbear, Risen, and Dragon Tea going to Denver next week also. So if you are going to be in Denver, definitely come find us and hit us up. And then we also will be speaking at Supra Oracle's event on the 4th. I just completely blanked on that date, but it should be the 4th. And before I get called out like I did last week, I'll be speaking at the Supra Oracle's event. So looking forward to that. If you are going to be in Denver, please make sure you hit us up, and we would love to meet you. And otherwise, we will be bringing you a lot of content from Denver, so it can feel like you're there, even if you're not. And let's get into some questions. If I can find the right tab. There we go. All right. First question is for Fox. Just asking for an update on the Crystal airdrop.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to find my buttons. But yeah, it's kind of in the same spot as it was at the start of the week, just because I've been so sidetracked by duels. But basically, what we want to do is add a couple more tweaks and like finishing touches to the PR that we submitted for Avalabs, and then have it get just like rebunked and have them look at it and give the thumbs up that that's the direction that they want to go in. And then we're going to roll that out to our test net, probably like hopefully start of next week or midweek maybe. And then we would see how that goes on testnet, run a bunch of tests, make sure it looks good. And that should really only take like a day to confirm and verify that it works properly. And then we'll just announce at that time, okay, a week out from now, we will upgrade mainnet. And so that will give all of the validators, because that's us, but the other nodes that are out there that are like indexing our chain, things like Dex Screener and others that like have nodes, will have time to sort of update their stuff prior to that update, so that there won't be any interruption in coverage, basically. And then mainnet upgrade will happen at that time, and then we can just set aside that 125 million crystal, airdrop it, and things are golden. So that's the game plan. Trying to just wrap that up this week on the Avalabs front, and then see how that goes from there.
Thank you, sir. I feel bad. I forgot to turn my camera on during my update, so I also figured out how to do a virtual background. I did mean to mention, and I forgot, so apologies. Dreamer is not here with us today. As we talked about last week, he was actually attending an event in Vegas. So he is there with a lot of the Ava Labs guys at, it's 2 events. One of them is DICE, and the other one is like MGS or MSG. I don't remember which one the acronym is. But those are the events that he had mentioned last week, and they are now. So that is where he is. Moving on to our next question. It's actually a follow-up from a question that we answered last week about material LP pools. And it's essentially asking if we would be considering adding an incentive layer to item LPs that emit something other than Crystal or Jade, the power token, in order to incentivize liquidity pools on those items. I believe we have some other thoughts on that. I think we were going over to you for this one, Fox.
Yes. Auction house. It's like that ancient aliens guy. I'm not saying it's auction house, but it's auction house. Yeah, no, that's basically the way that we want to solve this issue, is to essentially, well, actually, let me step back and sort of give a little bit of like some background for people that might not understand. But basically, right now, any of our items you can sell and trade on our decks, and it works fine, mostly fine. The issue is when you don't have a lot of liquidity in there, you have to create like pools that could have a lot of slippage or something. Like you might have an egg in there or 3 eggs in there, and somebody buys one and it creates a lot of slippage because there's just not a lot of liquidity there. So what we'd like to do is allow our players to basically have the ability to say, I've got 3 eggs, I want to sell them for 100 crystal each. like exactly. I don't want to have any kind of automatic slippage or whatever. Just 100 crystal each. Boom, done. And so to make that work, we're actually creating a auction house, which will actually work very similar to a centralized exchange, in the fact that it has a order book. So probably if you've used Binance or Coinbase or others, you're probably familiar with having like the buys and the sells, and in the place in the middle, like where they meet, is kind of the current price. And if you do like a market buy, it'll essentially try to buy whatever is the most cheap. And if you do like a market sell, it'll try to sell for like whatever's there. It'll essentially work like that. And then you have the ability to create like limit orders, basically, where you say, I'm going to sell this much for this much, and it will just store it in the order book until it is able to get up there, basically. So it's still not like centralized because it's actually running on a smart contract on a blockchain. So that's really like, it's not a centralized thing at all, but it just has the same kind of like pattern there as that. So I'm stoked about that. Huge shout out to Castorp, who used to work with us last year. He pioneered a lot of that, and he was very inspired by some of the other order books that are out there. I think there was one in particular, but the name slips my mind. Shoot. If I find out later, I'll stick it in the chat, because that whole like idea there of using trees and things for that ends up like really working very well. And underlying the structure for that actually is the same tree structure that we use for like matchmaking and for like leaderboard and others. It actually ends up being a very useful structure to have on the blockchain. So just FYI there. But yeah, that's the plan for that. When we have that up and running, you can basically list any very low liquidity things like pages or ERC20s like eggs or things like that on that auction house, and set the price that you want to sell them for, and then have the ability for others to come and buy them for that price. And if your price is less than other people's prices, they'll probably buy yours first. In fact, it'll automatically route to buy yours first. So it'll end up that it'll be a very good experience for the sellers and the buyers, and it's actually a very like unique offering that isn't seen a lot on blockchains. And we're planning to expand that into like outposts and things for other blockchains as well. So for example, if you hit our site but you're on like the Ethereum mainnet or something, you could still see the like NPCs there and things, and one of those NPCs could be someone who could say, hey, here's our auction house, you can see all of our orders here. So if you have ERC20 tokens or something on like those other chains, you could actually come and sell those on our app, basically, without having to have them actually get bridged. So I'm stoked about that. I think there's a lot of really cool opportunities there. The plan right now is to use the power tokens as sort of the underlying currency for that. So you'd have to buy and sell in Jade or Crystal, and there's a fee on top of that that would get put to like the Quest Fund, I believe, and then also some of the other places like for like the Dev Fund, and I think there might end up being some that gets burned. I'm not sure exactly yet how we're going to break down the fees, but it'll probably be pretty similar to how we've done other things. Similar to like the Tavern, for example, like for Heroes. And yeah, that's kind of the solution that we have for that.
Pinecone mentioned in the chat Dex a lot.
That was it. Yes, Dex a lot. They were some of the ones who pioneered the ability to use the trees for that, like underlying tree structure, and we made quite a bit of like modifications on like the pattern that they had. I think ours notably also supports ERC. Oh shoot, what was the number, Magnus? It's the one for the pages.
1155.
1155. And then some other tweaks and things there too. I think our plans are to actually redo it as a diamond, and then also support the ability to automatically route trades through our DEX as well, so that if you have like say Ethereum and you want to buy an egg with Ethereum, you could have the Ethereum get pulled, swapped for Crystal, and then traded basically all in like one transaction. So that's on like the roadmap there as well.
Awesome. Thank you much, Fox. Our next question I'm actually going to take myself. Sponsored content or events. Have we thought about sponsored content for in-game events or activities? Something like DFK's Duel Season 3 sponsor that's just like showing up on the initial interface. Yes, we have. that is something that we are kind of planning on doing, although a little bit differently than the question, at least for now. So one of the things that we've mentioned that we're working on currently is a tournament system. That tournament system is going to have a lot of uses for a lot of different things, which I'm really excited about. But one of the things that we're looking at doing with that is actually sponsored tournaments. So a third party could come in and say, hey, we want to sponsor this tournament. Here's the prize pool, et cetera, et cetera. We'll bake a little bit of their advertising in, and then essentially that would be the sponsored tournament. The caveat to that I just want to put out there up front is we're not going to do anything with it that would be disruptive to the user experience. So, kind of like the question mentioned where it's just like, that initial screen has a logo on it, something like that, where it's not intrusive. It's just there, is pretty much our plan. With those live tournaments, we are planning on doing some streaming around them and that kind of thing, which also gives us an opportunity to showcase those sponsors and help kind of co-market them. So very much excited for that. It's definitely something that we're looking at doing. I'm really looking forward to the tournament system, and keep an eye out because we might do something pre-tournament system, but I'm not going to say anything more than that right now because there's too much pending on it. But yeah, very much excited for that. Definitely something that is on our radar as well. Which takes us to, it's my favorite part of the AMA. It's the Hubert section. So, profession skill points. When we introduce level 10 profession quests, will you be able to get over 20 profession skill points?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I mean, technically you can get over 20 now, but it's the math just really suppresses the chance of it happening. But yes, it's going to be more like you just can kind of expect this similar kind of behavior as the level 0 profession quest did, in terms of growth, except being like a step of 10 up from there. So once you get to 30 is when it will start to be pretty hard to get above that.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. The next question I'm going to summarize a little bit, but basically the question is in PvP or in combat. So there's a resurrection ability in a couple different routes to get that resurrection. But what the question is after is if a hero dies and then gets resurrected, does that clear any status effects that were on that hero prior to death, whether they be buffs, debuffs, delayed abilities, etc.? You there, Hubert? Uh-oh. Hubert's computer froze. We're going to come back to that question in a minute. So while we let Hubert reboot his PC and maybe himself, uh, we'll grab another question real quick. So there's actually two questions that are kind of talking about the same thing, so I'm going to combine them into one question. So it's basically asking about the gas fees on Sarandale. Clay has been going up in value, which is what the first question was kind of based around. And then also their new tokenomics, which is going to be burning a lot of clay and reducing that supply, which could potentially lead to more positive price action. So basically asking kind of what our plans are to accommodate that increase in gas fee. Fox, I think you were going to speak to that.
Yes, I'll try to add even more hand movements this time so that we can have individuals stay entertained. But yeah, the solution that we've had in mind since like the very start hasn't really changed a lot. We just need to carve out some time to do it. But basically, we have a couple options on Clayton. Like they have a program called the gas fee rebate program, and I believe they've pledged or they've said that they'll support up to a certain amount every month. that could get like refunded to projects that are on their chain. So if we were to rely on that, we could theoretically figure out a way to have us pay Clay for transactions sort of on behalf of users, and then at the end of the month apply for that as a like rebate. So there's a couple ways that we could potentially implement something like this. One of them is probably the more like vanilla way, which is just basically having the end user submit a transaction, but that transaction will have extra like metadata that says, I'm only paying a portion of this transaction, maybe like 20% or 25%, and I'll have a other wallet be sort of like delegated to pay the rest of it. And so then our end will have a like listener that will say, okay, there's a transaction that was submitted that only paid 25%, let's pay the other 75%. And then at the end of the month, we can have that 75% get like rebated. Sorry, I have my kids home from school today because it snowed. And they're playing with kids. Anyways, basically that's sort of like the vanilla option, but I don't know that it's necessarily the best for our use case for end users for the like user experience. And the reason why is because you'd have to submit a transaction still, and then you'd have to wait even longer for us to sort of like register that transaction, have it get submitted with another transaction on our end, and then have it get like executed basically. So it'll slow things down a little bit. The other way that we could do it, that I'm actually leaning towards, and I think it'd be really cool, is if we set up something with our API such that you could basically use your MetaMask to log in and create a session. And that's actually a part of the PvP stuff that we're planning on building. It's already built, but like we're planning on like releasing it here in the short term. The ability for you to basically like log in with your MetaMask and create a session. Then what we could do is you could actually submit a API transaction which hasn't got any kind of a signature involved, and that API transaction could hit our servers, and then our node would immediately submit a transaction and basically pay all of the gas that's needed in Clay. There goes my dog now. And then what it could do is it could draw out like a portion of that, like 25% of that in Duel or something out of like your balance. So you could sort of approve that and sign up for that rebate system, and then you could have it automatically pull Duel at like a 25% rate, and then we would pay the rest of it or all of it in Clay, and then at the end we would just get like reimbursed for like what like we paid from the rebate program. And that's what I think would be coolest, because it basically means for questing and for duels and for other things, you wouldn't have to be hitting the sign all the time on like your MetaMask. You would just have to sign in at the start, and then you could just like hit start quest, and it would just start quest, and it would still have like a spinner, but at least you don't have to sign something every time or something like that. So it's basically abstracting a lot of the extra clicks, and also it would like result in a lot less like usage for gas. So that's what I'm trying to push for. We do need to still speak with Clayton more about that and figure out exactly how that'll work logistically. But from the technology standpoint, I think we have a pretty clear path forward. And the beauty of that system is we could actually apply that same system on our own chain. And it probably like wouldn't really have as much of a like rebate, but it would allow you to have a lot less clicks in there too, basically. So like you could start quests and things like that. What we would like to do at the end of the day is try and get Serendale and Crystal Vale kind of on par in terms of cost of like actually playing on those chains. That's sort of the end goal there. So if our chain is a lot cheaper, we would try to get it sort of in that area for the other chains as well in the future. Of course, there will always be things that cause like one chain to go up or down from like volume or traffic, or just like the price action on that day or something like that. But we're trying to get them to be sort of have in the same like ballpark basically. So that's what we're thinking. As far as timeline goes, you know, like there's still a fair amount that needs to be built. And we also have to sort of like work out the agreement with Clayton for like the rebates and stuff too. But you know, it's probably at the earliest you'd probably see like a month out or something like that, I would say.
Thank you, Sir Fox. And just a kind of reminder plug that, you know, all of these things take time, and not only do they themselves take time, but that also adds time that isn't being worked on something else. So it's always a game of balancing priorities. Uh, at all times, literally at all times. So, just keep that in mind as well when we talk about different stuff that we're working on or, looking at working on. Essentially every feature that we work on delays all other features. And that's fine. That's how, life works. But just a reminder to keep that in mind as well. All right, so back to this Hubert question here. So the summary of it is, if a hero in combat dies and gets resurrected, would the death of that hero reset any status effects that were on that hero prior to death?
All right, let's try this again. Sorry for the technical difficulties. My computer is making me sad. The when you die, all status effects would be removed. So if you do resurrect the hero, it would come back without status effects.
Perfect. And then just for clarity, any new status effects would go into effect. So if the resurrection causes exhaustion or something like that, that would then hit.
Right. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I'm actually I saw you answered this in chat, but I thought it was really good, so I'm gonna throw it at you live also. Is basic attack range.
Yeah, so that basic attack range is dependent on the weapon. Your swords and axes are range 1. Spears have a range of 2, and then your bows have a range of 3. So that applies to basic attacks as well.
And all heroes will have a basic weapon.
That's right. Yep. It won't be very good, but they will have one.
Even better. All right. And then another one for you. Someone teased about a new power-up being worked on. Spill it.
No. Yeah, no. We're gonna keep that close to our chest until we're ready to release it. So you can keep being excited for it. So
And to be fair, there's a couple we're working on, so
that's true.
just to add to the tease and not tell them what it is. All right, let's see. Question for the dude of Beetle. Any plans to add an enhancement filter in the tavern that would search by tiers, stones, crystals, etc., etc., etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always trying to enhance the filter options. I think those filters in particular are a little bit more in depth and require maybe some additional API resources. But I believe we've talked about them and they're on as a possible filter to be added. I just think there's a little bit more work for those specific items than most other filters. But yeah, it's on the docket to make sure we can get as many filters as possible. It's just a matter of how much of a lift it's going to be, like all things. Good question. Appreciate the question.
Thank you, Beetle. Let's see. So there's a question on Eternal Story page 10 and the Perilous Journey Land Tournament, basically asking, I guess, what the priority level of those are, and if we have checklists that we could use for those similar to the one that we have out right now for level 10 professions.
Let's see. Was that a me question or?
I guess you or Fox most likely. If you want to take it, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just a matter of our priorities. We are working on other things at the moment, and so as far as like a checklist or anything, I mean, the checklist would just basically say pending on everything because, if you spread yourself too thin and working on too many things all at once, it just lowers your efficiency. So, we're working on the PvP system, on the tournament system, and on the everything we've basically talked about up to this point, and those are, once we start getting those released, then we can turn our attention to these other things, in the order of priority that we assign. So it'll still be a bit, and it's just we only have so many hands to work with, and we haven't forgotten about it, but it's still going to be a while before we're going to have focus on those things.
Thank you, sir. And yeah, I mean, same reference or a reference to the statement I made before is, everything that we work on pushes back everything else that we want to be working on. So constant game of balancing and prioritizing. Let's see here. So, do we plan on releasing an updated roadmap soon? Yes, would be the short answer. It actually kind of falls into that same category of, we want to put together a good roadmap and something that can kind of be pointed to long term, instead of doing what we've done in the past where every update is a very manual update and it's not super informative. We want to build something a little bit better this time and have like a better long term solution. But again, that takes time and resources, so it kind of falls back into that balancing act. But yes, it's definitely something that we are working on, getting everything together for and getting that rolling. Let's see. One last question for this week, and it may be too early to really speak to it, but I'm going to throw it out there and see what I can get. Could the team potentially expand upon the impact PvP would have on token usage slash supply, mostly from a high level perspective, because the details are very likely to change, but the intended link between active gameplay and token usage? So, like I said, it might be too early. We might not want to say anything yet, but I'm throwing it out there for anybody that wants to comment.
I guess I could say a few things. We've had potions for a long time. The intent with those was always to be used in combat. So I think that all of the potions use different ingredients from the different profession quests. So once we get PvP out, you can expect to also be using potions in that. I won't go into details about some of the limitations that there will be, other than saying that there will be limitations. You won't be able to just use unlimited potions per fight, and I mean, beyond that, we also will be having a crafting system eventually for crafting weapons and equipment, and so that also is going to play into there being more of a gathering resources going into being used elsewhere as well. So having more of a complete gameplay loop. The PvP in combat has been kind of the missing major piece to all of this, and it's a lot of work to get there, especially with the level of complexity we're putting into it. But the end goal is that there will be a lot of people using potions, having in tournaments, it being kind of important to have them, and so on. So hopefully that at least kind of gives you a sense of where things are going.
Thank you, good sir. Frisky, I saw you had something that you had wanted to add and missed. Do you want to add whatever it was now?
I was mostly just trying to tease people, but it was about power-ups. There's other things that I've been really excited about that we can do for power-ups related to kingdom builders. I think we've talked about it a little bit before as a possibility, but we've been looking more into it. That's all I'll say for now. Yep.
That will work. Thank you, good sir. All right. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up this week, actually a little bit early, which almost never happens. So I just want to say that I really appreciate, as always, everybody taking the time for this AMA, both participating and listening. Also, really appreciate everybody who keeps submitting really good questions. Please keep them coming. Otherwise, there's no reason for us to be here. So ask us questions. I know you have them. but really do appreciate it. I look forward to these every week. I think they're great, so I am glad that we get to continue doing them. Uh, I'm not going to go around the horn necessarily, but I will open it for anybody who has additional comments before we let Fox send us off. All right. Well, Fox, take it away.
No additional comments. Yeah, I guess I always have thoughts at the end, but there's a lot going on. Like I said at the start, it just gets more and more busy. We are, like looking at ways to help to scale that as well. Sashay has been hard at work on like roadmap stuff. We've had a few meetings about that, and I think that's going to be really crucial, not only for us internally to be able to always have like a idea of, okay, here's what I need to be working on right now, because there's always like so many things. How do you figure out which one has a priority? But also to help to start to be more transparent with the community as well, on what are we actually working on right now, what are like the progress of things, and then having the ability to sort of see in real time as things gets updated. We've done that in the past for some of our like really big releases, and I think that's been really good. But I would love to have that just sort of ongoing, sort of like, here's what we did this week, here's what so and so did this week. And obviously there's things we can't always be super transparent about because sometimes they're like related to alpha that hasn't dropped yet. But I've been trying to figure out ways to be more and more transparent. And probably like we would have to caveat a lot of things, like this is what we're doing now. It doesn't guarantee or mean or have any kind of like financial advice or whatever it is, like we would just have to say like, this is what we're doing. Make your own decisions based on that. But I just want everyone to have as much information as early as possible on those types of things. And there is a lot that's going on that I think a lot of people don't see, a ton of like behind the scenes work on things. So just shout out to the team. They're hard at work. We all are. We've sacrificed our nights and weekends almost every week for the past like 2 years. And it's been a lot of work, a lot of fun, and it still is. And we're still hard at work. So shout out to the team, shout out to the community. You guys are great as well. I really love to see the reception of all of the new notes we have, like for patches, and how excited everyone is for those things. And there's some exciting things that are coming up that I'm stoked about as well. So I guess with that, I'll just end by saying bullish, and thanks everyone for coming. Bye.
Bullish.
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 Thanks, y'all.